Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from In Need of Healing. And here is her story. Hi, Ollie. You did a video for me a couple months back called "The Narcissist Never Wanted You to Have a Good Life." It was very healing and helpful, and gave me much peace just to have someone understand what I went through. I would really like your opinion and advice on my current situation. The last 5 years goes as follows. My marriage was ending in divorce. I had a new baby and no one to talk to or help me. I broke a 10-year no-contact term with my parents. I felt vulnerable, alone, and scared. I thought a grandchild would make things not as bad with them. How I was wrong. My mother leapt at the chance to control me and put me down when I was at my weakest. After my divorce was finalized, I had a year to leave the home I shared with my first husband. It was a long, messy divorce that took almost 3 years. This was part of the divorce agreement to give me time to find a new place to live. During the divorce, I met my current husband who lives in the USA. I am Canadian. We had a long-distance relationship from the beginning, and it is still that way today. So you've had a long-distance relationship with your current husband the entire marriage? American husband and I wanted very badly to have a child together. I was 6 months pregnant and only months away from needing to move out of the ex-husband's house. This is where I made a critical mistake. I had still not been able to find a suitable place to move to. I ended up buying a house just a few houses away from my parents. I was scared of the upcoming birth of my next child and also having a toddler to care for, all while American husband was 15 hours away from me. I thought it would be helpful to have my parents close to me. All right, so let me see if I'm grasping this. You were just divorced from your first husband, and you had a year to move out after the divorce. And you met your American husband, who lives a long-distance relationship the entire time, living 15 hours away. And you were 6 months pregnant by the time you had to move out of the ex-husband's house. And that's where you made your critical mistake. I don't know. I think your critical mistake might have been a little bit before any of this. Right away, there was no privacy and a complete disregard for any kind of boundaries. She would call me 3 times in a row, and when I wouldn't answer, she would be banging on my front door. She would always say it was because she was worried about me, but you and I both know that was bullshit. She would selectively worry about me only when it suited her wants and needs. Here's my question. You said you bought the house, right? So you were able to buy a home, get a mortgage. So what did you need to live with your ex-husband's house for a year? And then get pregnant 6 months into it and remarry? Like, I gave birth early because of complications. I made sure my mother knew she was not going to be there. My husband couldn't be there because of the short notice of emergency C-section. I did have a doula with me. That is a woman who is a birth companion and birth coach. She was with me for my first birth, and she was wonderful. Well, it took less than 24 hours before my mother tracked me down at the hospital and showed up. She spent hours in my hospital room bragging about herself and monopolizing my doula when I needed help, and just quiet after surgery. Once again, I was so embarrassed by my mother and her behavior, making it all about herself in front of other people. This is a recurring thing she has done my whole life. My mother took my car home with her so she could pick me up in a couple days. How early did you give birth? I mean, for your husband not to be there for the birth of his own child, I mean, how did you get... I don't know where the courting period was with your husband, how well you got to know him. I mean, this whole thing is... After 3 days in the hospital, my mother came to drive me, the new baby, and my car home. The parking garage is always busy because it's the largest hospital in the city. As I approached my car, I saw people slowing down at it and then aggressively driving off. There are cement pillars with 2 or 3 parking spaces in between each one. My mother had parked my car diagonally across 2 spots on purpose. I told her, how dare she do that with my vehicle. That's how you get your car keyed or damaged by someone pissed off you took 2 spots. Well, if you're leaving the hospital, don't they wait? I mean, I don't know how they do it in Canada, but you pull up right to the front of the hospital. There's no parking spots involved. So I don't know if you do it differently or not. But she is picking you up after a cert. I mean, I could understand what her thinking process is here. She waved it off like she was the Queen of England and said everyone could just deal with it. Her blatant disregard for my property and other people was so infuriating. On the drive home with my new baby in the car and me in pain from the C-section surgery, she made sure to drive good and fast over a bunch of railway crossing and some speed bumps just to get the car good and bouncy. I told her not only is she damaging my car, but it hurts my stitches, bitch. Remembering this and typing this out to you is making me so fucking angry. When we got home from the hospital, she made sure to start an argument with me about how to care for a baby. I promptly kicked her out of my house. I still remember the look of shock on her face. What mother picks a fight with her daughter the first hour she gets home from the hospital? Once again attacking me when I'm at my weakest. So that was 2 years ago. I have reinstated my no-contact practices. Over those 2 years, there have been a couple of incidences, of course. First, I stopped answering her calls and never responded to text. I also stopped answering any knocks at my door. Well, it doesn't help that you bought a house 3 houses down from her either. This is the part I need your help with, my American husband. He grew up with parents who are not narcissists. He does not really understand anything about this. I want to tell him to watch some of your videos, but he doesn't have time. He comes to Canada a couple times a year and stays for a week or two. This isn't a marriage. This isn't a marriage. My mother knows I want nothing to do with her, so she waits till American husband's truck is in my driveway and then starts her bullshit. When he was here at Christmas, she came over and banged on my door for 10 minutes and finally left. She then called me a bunch of times, so I turned my phone off. 2 days later, when I wasn't at the house, my mother saw husband out working in the garage and came over. She invited him over for dinner. Not us, just the kid. Not us and the kids, just him. He never went over, but I am not sure if it was because I was so mad when he told me about it that night. Fast forward 4 months, Christmas to Easter that just passed. I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard a thing from my parents. No phone calls, no banging on the front door. Just bullshit gifts left on my porch for one of my children's birthdays. Not on the second child's birthday, just the first. Yes, my parents' pattern of playing kids off each other like they did with my brother and me our whole lives. My American husband just came here for a week, ending on Easter. My mother can see us drive up in the evening from her front window. She watched my husband and I go pick up my oldest from school and what time we came back for a few days, and then on the third day she was standing in my fucking driveway when we came home. We got out of the truck and I instructed the kids to go into the house. I then got my stuff out of the truck, ignoring her the whole time. She tried to greet me as if nothing had been going on the last 2 years and everything was normal. You know, that sick, fake sweetness. Hello, how have you been doing? My husband went over to talk to her. I left them both in the driveway and went in the house. My mother does this because she knows I won't tell her to get the fuck off my property and go to hell when my husband is standing there. Why? Then that means you don't trust your husband. That means you're afraid of telling your husband the full truth. And the reason you're afraid of telling your husband the full truth is because he's not your husband. He's a long-distance relationship. And I think you just jumped from one relationship to another out of convenience, complacency, or whatever you want to call it. How is this a marriage? I don't understand how this is a marriage. If you were 6 months pregnant by the time you had to move out of your ex-husband's house, which you had a year after that divorce was finalized, I don't understand how you could have met, married, got to know your husband to the point where you're ready to marry him, have children in 6 months, but you've yet in 4 years, I think this is, he's not spent more than a couple weeks a year with you. Yet you live 3 houses down from your mother, who you say you're trying to be no contact from, right? Your mistake happened a lot sooner than you think it did. And what bothers me, about this is that you bought your house. So you said you needed to live with your ex-husband for a year so you can find a place to live. That usually means you're saving for rent or something. You bought a house. So, I got a lot of questions here. Or now that I think about it, maybe she's trying to get me to flip out on her so I look bad crazy in front of my husband. My husband listened to me get it out of my system later that night, but he never really takes my side. He never really agrees with me because he's not around. And if he doesn't agree with you, it's because you're married. It's like you're married, but you're a side piece. Your husband treats you like he was not involved. He doesn't take your side because he doesn't care to. How could he? How could he even know the details? You've seen him a couple weeks out of your whole marriage. If you had tallied up all the time you spent with your husband, does it even equal up to 6 months? You expect him to take your side? He won't even share a bed with you most of the time. He never really agrees with me. So this is how I think I see it. My mother is creating a serious problem in my marriage. Your mother is not creating a problem. She may be trying to, but your mother may be trying to cause a problem in your marriage, but your marriage has problems that's not related to your mother. Okay? Your problem is you. Your problem is your need for dependence on a man, a place to live, I don't know. But because this story there's just too many holes in it. Your husband doesn't show up for the birth of his own child. He couldn't figure out a way. Even if it happened early, you were there for 3 days. He couldn't figure out how to get to Canada in 3. Come on. And you want to blame this on your mother? Now, your mother's a narcissist. We know this from other videos. She ain't the problem here. The problem is why you feel you need to be dependent on a relationship. Even when the first marriage was over, you didn't move out. And you didn't move out until you were 6 months pregnant and married with somebody else. You don't see that as a problem? And it's obvious you didn't need to stay in that house because you bought your own home while you were pregnant. And granted, your mother didn't handle the hospital well, picking you up and all, but at least she fucking showed. The bouncing you around in the car, probably. I mean, I'm sure she did because they can't help themselves. She's not your problem. Your husband is. You're in Canada. He's American. He's 15 hours away. How did you meet him? Where did he come from? How did you get to a point where you were able to marry him, have a kid? I mean, come on. And you think your mother's creating a serious problem in your marriage? No, your husband won't even show up for the birth of his child. Didn't show up to take him home, and he had days to do it. She knows I tell my husband everything she has done to me my whole life and how it makes me feel and why I've gotten no contact with her. She's trying to make my husband see her as a sweet old lady who just keeps trying to be so nice and doesn't understand why her daughter is doing this to her, which makes me look crazy, mean, irrational, cruel, etc. So either he believes her or me. But it causes him to question me, my sanity, my motives, because he has never had to experience being raised by a narcissist. You know, to be honest with you, I mean, I question him. Because it sounds to me like this is some kind of weird marriage of convenience for him as well. Sure he's not married to someone else? Because it seems like you're like a side family to me. That's what that seems like. You don't want to get too involved. This also makes me have doubts about our relationship, do you think? Because I need someone to be by and on my side to help me rid my life of this shit. If someone was hurting him, I would drop them so fast. I don't want to tell him what to do because this would this would be like an ultimatum. Gee, you're only married to him. You don't want to tell your husband he has to live with you because this isn't a marriage. This isn't a marriage. You're not married. You're in a long-distance relationship with a kid. You think your mother's ruining this relationship? No, you're just blaming her. That's not to say she's not a narcissist. She is, but she's not the problem here. I want him to love and respect me enough to want to be a part of my no contact. He doesn't. He doesn't love you to show up and care to show up to the birth of his own child. Don't give me work. Don't give me work. No job is going to tell you got to stay here. And unless he's in the fucking military, even then, if he's in the United States, they'd let him go. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? How much disbelief are you willing to suspend for this dude? Honestly. You couldn't have known him that long. You couldn't have gotten to know him that long. He hasn't lived with you more than a few weeks that you've known him. The ink wasn't even dry. You weren't even moved out of your first house before you got married and pregnant. You can't see you were running from one thing to another here? The problem's not your mother. The problem is the marriage. It's not real. It's not a real marriage. I'm sorry. It's not. And it sucks now because now you got another kid. But it's time you have to face reality of what your situation is. If you were able to buy that house next to your mother, why haven't you sold it and bought another house then? There's no reason for you to still be sitting in your mother's house if you were able to buy that one. I mean, in that house 3 houses down from your mother, if you were able to buy that one, why are you still there? She's trying to cast me in a bad light in his eyes. She also knows this will divide my husband and me. Because my childhood and my horrible narc parents, I have severe bonding and abandonment issues. Well, clearly. Even after the divorce, you refused to leave the house until you had a husband and another baby. Do you think? That's your problem. You have severe bonding and abandonment issues. There it is. That's what I've been saying the whole video. Your mother's not the problem in your marriage. Your marriage is the problem in your marriage. I'm having doubts about my husband. How could I be with someone who wants people in our lives who hurt me so bad and continue to every day? I don't like who I am and how I feel when my parents are around me. They make me so angry for days and I feel physically sick. I also have anger towards my husband when he talks to my mother, but I haven't told him that because you have severe bonding and abandonment issues. And you don't want to face reality that he's not your husband. He's not your husband. And you're not his wife, you're his side piece. Sorry, but that's the reality. Whether you have a marriage certificate or not. What fucking husband doesn't? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? How do I make my husband understand all this? File for divorce. And move on. So you either figure out a way to come to Canada or get me to the United States. One or the other. Why haven't you moved to the United States? Have you even looked at, you're kind of just living like this is how it is. You moved 3 houses down, so you were able to buy the house. Why haven't you sold that house and moved into another house? So what, you want to carry on your marriage with your husband, living 3 houses down from your mother and father? Why? Why? Because you have bonding and abandonment issues. Your videos about how mothers are jealous and don't want their kids to succeed really help me understand what's going on. Thank you for all your help. Well, in need of healing. You're in need of some independence is what you're in need of. Okay, because you trauma bond. You trauma bond to men. You're even trauma bonded to your mother. As evidence of when your husband wasn't going to live with you, I guess you bought the house 3 houses down. What you need independence. Is what your issue is. You need independence from this marriage. You need independence from your family. You need no contact from everybody. Your husband is not going to understand this unless you tell him either we're going to live together one way or another, or this marriage is doomed. Those are your only 2 options here. Okay? Because to me, it seems like he likes things just the way they are. And why shouldn't he? He gets to do whatever he wants. He gets to do whatever he wants 90% of the year. Don't have to answer to anybody. Comes and goes as he pleases. And he shows up to Canada for a couple weeks, okay? And for a week at a clip, and he's gone. What's the fix here? What are you trying to fix here? This isn't a marriage. It's a trauma bonding. There was no reason for any of this. There's no reason for any of this other than the narcissist trauma bonds you to relationships. I mean, that's what's going on here. So until you lay the ultimatum down, and that's what it has to be. He's your husband. Either we live together, we sell this house, I come to the United States, or you move to Canada, and we figure, what's the point? You want him to defend you, he doesn't even know you. He doesn't even know you. And he doesn't care to. It doesn't seem. So, I hope that helps. Thank you for another contribution and story in need of healing. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, or a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it growing, supported, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been The Narcissistic Resistance.